Okay, so we have all the bearings out except for this countershaft bearing and your oil pump bearings, which I'm pretty sure they don't come in the kit, so I'm kind of concerned since I can't get these out, I'm just going to try and hope that I'm going to hope that the heat from the oven is going to just widen everything up and they'll fall right out. I hope so. No promises. But just in case, I don't want them falling on the bottom of the stove. So cookie sheet. Yeah, we have our bearing drivers set and ready. So we're gonna go ahead and flip this one over this way, catch the bearings so they don't fall down in there, and we're just gonna set the oven to 400 degrees, and we're gonna cook them for about 15 minutes. So, and I already have the bearings in the freezer ready to rock and roll. Well, catch you in a minute. All right, all out of the oven, nice and hot. Got all the bearings set up. You might need to assist with the seal driver and a hammer to get them in, but most likely they should pretty much drop right in. You can hear the sizzle. Oh, sizzle. It's kind of hard seeing what I'm doing because I'm doing it with one hand and the other. Make sure your lips are facing up for your retainers to go in. You'll have that on your main bearing on the opposite side, but usually they all just drop right in. And we're not worried about the countershaft bearing this time, or for right now, because we'll have to flip it over, and once we get these in, we don't want them to, whoops, you go right here. Once they go in, they're in. So I will have to assist, knock them in. It's kind of hard because I'm only using one hand right now. But yeah, it does make it a lot easier. I'll be right back. Okay, so they're all sitting in there nice and flush. It just took a little bit of assistance from the seal bearing driver and a hammer, not much at all. They pretty much fell in place with a couple taps. This guy did give me a little trouble. I have not put the counterbalance shaft bearing in because this is still cooling down, and I'm gonna wait until I get the retainers in and this all cool down. I did throw it back in the freezer though, so it'll be easier to install when going back together. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Make sure that you know, your ring, or what would you call that, lips are facing up so your retainers fit in them. I believe there's two on the other side, or on the right hand side case half, so pay attention to that. Also, you know, I don't think I mentioned that I took out the oil jet right here that goes underneath the piston crown, but I took that out before I threw it in the oven. In fact, I took pretty much everything out except for like crankcase, breather, this dowel pin seized in there, so I'm like, screw it, whatever, he's gonna go right back in anyways. But yeah, pretty much it. So case halves cooled down. I already went ahead and put this counter balance bearing in, pull it out of the freezer, kind of went a little sideways, just a few taps, got it straight, went right in. Probably should have recorded that. But now it's time for seal installation and also your retainers for your bearings. Now, normally I'd put the retainers in first because in case the bearings fall out when I'm pounding these in, but you are going to need a seal driver kit. And just get them started, somewhat started, as even as you can, as even as you can, and then you're going to find your correct size seal driver, just a little tiny bit smaller than the actual seal. You don't want to be running on the insides here, you'll ruin your seal. So get this guy all set up and put him in, or strike him in. When it makes that nice little flush sound, you're all done. Just check your edges. This one's poking out just a little bit, so kind of pick up on the driver just a tiny bit, give her a nice little tap, she'll seat right in there. Now, this kit, Wiseco loves you, this kit did come with the cam for your clutch cam arm, which is really nice of them. Fucking Wiseco loves you. Vertex don't do that, so we put him in, and you want to make sure his rib is facing inwards and not outwards. And rule of thumb with all seals all the time is numbers face outwards. So now we're gonna have to find a different driver for this one, and this one I'll probably just use a socket. Actually, I think I could thumb that one in. Yep, bam, easy peasy. For your shifter or shift. I can't talk today. Whatever. Shift shaft, and this is your counter shaft seal. And if you're watching this video to see which seals go where, always you could just check clearances with like the guide that goes here. Usually if they fit in there, they go in there. Sometimes you run across a machine where, you know, it's got two of the same size seals, and they usually at that point it doesn't matter. Now that we got all our seals in, it's time to put our retainers and our oil jet in here. And before we do that, we're always going to add a little bit of Loctite. You might want to clean off the old Loctite first. All right, and we're gonna add red Loctite, not green. Factory loves to use green. That's why you have to use a lot of heat, but not much. Just cover the bottom end of the threads, not a whole lot. You don't need a shit ton. Make sure your surfaces are clean. And just run them in there. We're just gonna go a little bit past snug. That should be good. Now retainers. I set mine off to the side, organize mine so I know which ones go where. But again, if you forget where they go, usually they'll have perfect little grooves that the retainers are going to set into. Just like that. Lays down there just perfect, just fine. And make sure you clean them off too. Put the other one in. And also this time you can check if you're actually flush, because they'll have like a little bit of sound play, but this one's good, so we don't have to add to that or add more pressure to that. And there you go. That's that. This case half is ready to be assembled. So after this one, I'm going to go ahead and take care of this one, and I'm only pointing or bringing this one out to attention because this one has a snap ring that goes in here too. So if you ever have a snap ring that holds a bearing in place, you want to make sure you put that in before you put the seal in, unless it's a weird one where it's on top of the seal. This one is not. This one has its seal going on. Whoops, wrong one. Its seal going on top. So after I get the snap ring in, put the seal in, whoops, put the seal in, and we'll be golden. And on this one, you just have your counter shaft seal, because this is a split case scenario. Honda loves doing this. This seal and this seal, and that's it for this one. All right, so this is bottom end assembly, and I'm going to be using the left case half as the base to set everything into. It really doesn't matter what side you use, just make sure you have enough clearance behind so shafts can go through and not protrude out, because that will hinder when you're going back together. Now first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our little reed guy in there on this case half. Just set him in all the way in. Now that he's in there, we're not going to forget him. It'd suck to go all the way back together and have to get this guy in. So next, I'm going to go ahead and add oil to all the bearings in here. Every one of them. Same oil that I'm going to be using, so, well, not for transmission side. Transmission is going to get 1040 and then I'll get 80 later, but it'll be fine, because I'll be changing the oil very soon after one ride on this. So Give me a second, let me add some oil and I'll be right back. All right, oil added, and a lot of you can use assembly lube. In fact, I'd recommend you use assembly lube on all your bearings when you're going together. The reason why I'm not using assembly lube is this is a pretty fresh teardown. I know everything's really clean and stuff, but like I'm going to be changing the oil very soon. Plus, I am very mean to my machines. I like to see how much they can go through, I suppose. They handle it though. So before we start adding any more internals, we're going to also do one more thing so we make sure we don't forget, and that's a dowel pin. All right, got our dowel pins in, and we're ready to start going. Oh, one more, see? Don't want to forget. So putting the one, he's probably not going to stay, but at least this will be in. You know what I'm saying? Or no, he's got that lip right there that's going to hold him in place good. Oil pump in. You know, I'm going to add just a tiny bit of oil to him. And then, of course, we're going to wipe down surfaces before we see case halves, but we're going to wait until we get everything together, just in case we get more oil or schmutz or whatever you want to call it all over the place. So right now we're going to start with crankshaft, just to get this one out of the way, the big deal out of the way. Make sure I have clearance behind because it protrudes the farthest on the crankshaft. Nice new shiny Wiseco crankshaft. I'm a big fan of Wiseco. It's even more beautiful than in the pictures. We're just gonna wiggle them down into place. Usually you'll be about halfway through the rod before it comes to a stop or seated. This one needs to go a little more. I can still see the... Ow! Watch your finger. Ow! There you go. Seated in place. Alright, so now time for transmission. Now we didn't do any disassembly with the transmission, so it's all together in one piece. And make sure everything is still all together, nice and seated. Make sure you keep your thrust washers in place when you do this too. So here we go. Just try as hard as you can. I'm used to being where you're at, so this is going to be difficult for me. I want them to go down kind of together into the same slots, and this one is not doing it. I wonder if I can just twist it in there. Nope. We're going to have to start over. So pull this one out, this one out. Make sure we get our stacks back together correctly. Make sure all your thrust washers are in there. We're going to try this again. This is becoming a pain very quickly. And I don't want to set this transmission down on this towel. It's very dirty. My shirt's cleaner. Might have dog hair on it, but it's cleaner. Alright, so we're just going to set them in together. Attempt to. Oh, I can't get this main shaft lined up. I think I got it there. If I can get my finger out again. Can I just have my finger, please? And trying to get it lined up on the main shaft. There we go. Got the main shaft in. And the counter shaft in, and I'm wondering why it's not lining up. It's like the counter shaft has to go down a little bit more. I have plenty of clearance. She's just not wanting to go, so I'm thinking that ring gear fell out again. It's holding this up, or that ring spacer. Maybe not. Maybe if we move the gears up and down a little bit. There you go. Oh, didn't get it. It started to go. There it goes. Got it. There you go, transmission in place. Don't worry if it binds up, it's probably just because dogs are engaged where they shouldn't be. These little ears on some of your transmission gears, mostly the fixed ones. And that's that for that. And now it's time for the shift forks. So if you remember, I was telling you, like, don't mix them up, keep them stacked the same way. These are the exact same shift fork though. Or no, they're not. These are different, but don't mix them up. And if you ever question it, go ahead and just refer to your service manual and check. There's that one. And then there's that one. He's not going to stay very well, but you want them up and out of the way so you can still get your shift drum in. Okay, and now we're going to get the other one, and he goes this way. And now we're going to put the shift drum in, but you're going to have to give me a minute. I need to clean him up. He's got quite a bit of dirt on him, so I'll be right back. Okay, got all the grime and gunk off of this guy. Now, gear shift drum will go in. This particular one has a gear position sensor or neutral sensor, and it's going to face out. Nice. And we're just going to put him right where he goes, set him in, and then we're going to pick up our shift forks and we're going to slide them into, you know, wherever. So you'll have your middle one, which is that one over there, your bottom one, and then your top one. So long as they all stay in that same, stay in place long enough for you to get your shift shafts. You have your shift shafts and you're going to drop them in place. Oop, he just fell out of his spot. Lining up this bottom one will be a pain, but once you get it, bada bing, bada boom. Don't mix up your shift shafts. This one's hard to mix them up because it's near impossible. Now that we got that all together, we're going to go ahead and clean up sealing surfaces on both sides of the case halves. And we're going to, I'm going to put silicone, I'm going to put the gasket down on this side. And then we'll start going back together. Alright, got the gasket in place. Snip this guy out of the way. This one did come with little notches in it to let you know where to cut it at, but I'm not going to worry about it because it protrudes far enough where I'm going to be razor blading it off as soon as we get the case halves together. So, set in place. Everything's good. We're not forgetting nothing. Got the reed deal in, oil pump in, dowel pins in, oil jet in, and all of our retainers are in. Double check before you go back to before you set this on, because it sucked to waste a case half gasket forgetting something simple. So anyways, we got the other case half. It's got oil on it. I did not wipe it clean, so give me one sec. Okay, so all clean. And just line up your shafts. You might need to wiggle just a little bit. This one's going oblocked already. Makes me want to start over. Okay. It might take some wiggling and stuff like that to get it set in place. Maybe even some nice little soft taps with a rubber mallet. But I like to watch the gaps, make sure they stay the same, because usually you could just give it little wiggles with some pressure and it'll set all by itself. This one is not wanting to set. Did my counter shaft move up? No, it did not. Okay. Fuck. Gotta line up all three of these shafts, your shift shafts, your gear shift drum. And it might be time consuming. When you get to this point where it's pretty well seated, I did give it some soft taps there because this side was hanging up. You want to make sure your dowel pins are still lining up. Make sure your gasket's still set in place, still lined up, not running into anything. Because this is like a one-shot deal. I don't know what happened to my flashlight. Oh, there it is. So I'm just checking to make sure gasket's still all lined up on the inside, not raised up in an area or two, not caught on anything else. And we're about there. Dowel pins lined up. So we're just going to give her soft tap here, not on any sealing surface. Alright, got her started on that dowel pin. And now we're going over to this side on this dowel pin. And we're getting there very quickly. And we're just going to keep working back and forth until it sits all the way on its own. Okay, after some tapping on main mount points, not heavy, but you know, just some light force behind them. Make sure my gear shift drum stays lined up in his spot. Everything's still lined up and good. So, and we are sealed pretty much all the way. This guy might be coming. There. Don't want that guy sticking out because going back together, you swing arm running that and you can't figure out what the hell's going on. You have to pull your engine back out of the machine. So now we're at this point. Oh yeah, and you also want to make sure this guy stays inside or in his slot. I don't think I ever mentioned that. So now we're going to flip him over onto the clutch side, and then we're going to go ahead and assemble or put all the bolts in, torque them down. I'm just going to send them with Ugga Duggas because I trust my impact. It doesn't go over 110 inch-pounds. It should be fine. Okay, so I got this fancy bolt dress kit. They're even nice enough to send a new crush washer for your oil drain. And it makes me wonder if they sent one for the, or that's the one we're talking about? That's it, yeah. For your transmission oil drain, not your actual drain plug. My bad. Figured it was for that. So now, when you're doing this, I guess you're at a pretty good angle. So what you're looking for is the same gap between every bolt. Okay? That's about the same. Well, this one's a little short. Let's try this one. That seems better right there. And let's see what this one does. A little short. That seems about right. A little short. A little short. There we go. That seems about right. So this one must go there. That seems about right. That seems about right. Okay, just real quick, I ran into a little problem, so I'll throw in a little tip here. I'll probably put it on another video too, where my gasket is not completely lined up for one bolt hole. So don't force it in. Just take like a long pick. I guess you could use a very narrow screwdriver and do the same thing too. Just kind of move it into place. All right, and that should be it. All right, so we got all our bolts staged. everything looks good. All have the same clearances on them. I am not going to tighten down this one or this one because that's for the gear position sensor, and this one is for a cable holder. I don't know if I'll put it back on, but I'm changing my crankcase breather. We'll get to that later. Anyways, we're going to start with the centers and crisscross our way out. And save this guy for last since he's a different size.
Go back and check in.
And we're just going to go back through and recheck. Alright, now for that guy. There we go. And that's that. That is bottom end. Technically, I would make you put the shift shaft in, cam and pawl, and work through your gears to make sure you have all, running through all your gears 1 through 5. So, but I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to save that part for the clutch assembly. Right now I'm going to put this engine inside the chassis since it's nice and light and I don't want it to damage the powder coat on the front. So that's it though. Good job, guys.